Welcome back, Wharf Rats. It's another exciting edition of Rat Chat, our second edition. Here we are in Baltimore this rainy day in front of City Hall. And we got a lot of exciting things today. One thing we got going on. Guess who's going to be joining us? Dave Shaw, my good friend and designer of Brave Little Belgium, Lucky Little Luxembourg, Ginorma Pod, White Eagle Defiant, and former employee of Avalon Hill. Maybe we'll learn a little bit about his life and work there.
He's got some interesting things to say.
Yes, he does. And we also have a new segment called Baltimore's First. We're going to learn a little bit about the Ouija board. What else today?
Well, we have an interview. There's two interviews today. And the second one was Alex Zatarain, up-and-coming, fantastic new artist for board games. You'll hear about him and the games he's working on, including Pursuit of John Wilkes Booth that we co-designed. And then we're going to talk about, this is exciting, drum roll please, they're going to announce the name of Herman Luttman's new World War I Push Your Luck system game that he's designing for us as our first game. And we're going to announce this name. And
one more thing, at the very, very end, Stay tuned, don't miss it. At the very end will be something exciting we're going to be showing off. I'm not going to say what it is, but stay tuned.
We're excited.
Okay, here we go. Let's get rolling. We are here with a special guest today, Dave Shaw, my good friend Dave Shaw, who I've known for a very, very, very long time, since about, I guess we were both 6 years old. Dave, hey, how you doing today?
I am doing fine, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with the Wharf Rats. Thank you for gracing me with your show. I'm honored.
And besides being my good friend since I was 6 years old, Dave is also the co-designer of Brave Little Belgium, White Eagle Defiant, the award-winning, Charles S. Roberts award-winning Lucky Little Luxembourg, which he is a proud award winner for that, and Ginorma Pod. Lots of good games there, Dave.
Well, they're only good because we worked on them together, Brian.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So we wanted to get you here on the show today because we had some questions for you, and both about a little bit about how you got into gaming. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your experience at Avalon Hill, because I know you work there, and then a little bit about designing games now in this modern era. So maybe you can get us started telling us a little bit how you got into gaming in the first place.
Well, I started gaming. I'm 52 now, so it was actually 40 years ago. I was 12 years old. I don't remember how I picked up an interest in World War II, but like a lot of guys, one of the first games I was exposed to was the original, well, not the original, but the first Milton Bradley itineration of Axis and Allies. I got that as a Christmas present, Christmas of 1984. And as Ryan alluded to, we were both in grade school at that time. So, of course, he and I and some of our other gamer friends, we'd always get together and play that. And, of course, we did other things like Dungeons and Dragons and, role-playing stuff. But I started to really pick up the history bug and got into my first gaming company that I really got into was Avalon Hill, like a lot of guys. First couple of games from them is kind of an odd bunch, but I think it I think these three games kind of touch on all the subjects I enjoy. One of the first games I got was the B-17 solitaire game, which has always been, solitaire games have always been a real enjoyment of mine. One of the other first games I got was the Victory Games NATO. Again, I'm big into hypothetical what if games, so that definitely was a lot of fun. And then probably the one oddity of the bunch, because this is not a game that a lot of people cite as one of their favorites, but it's a personal favorite of mine, is Guns of August from Avalon Hill, which really piqued my interest in World War One, because I started out really being a World War II aficionado. I really enjoyed the history behind that particular conflict. But from that, I then have expanded over the years. And honestly, now, I mean, my preferred era of warfare is pretty much anything from Napoleon to the modern day. But you know, I've found as I've gotten older, I like to try different things. Just to kind of see what's out there and realize, hey, this is an interesting topic. I know I've talked about this with several people, including Wes. One of the things that really had gotten me into history, or into wargaming rather, was when I would read history books. I would, when I was finished them, I would have this desire. I was like, oh, I'd like to play a game on that. I'd like to try to, recreate that history and see if I could make, the same decisions or do better or whatever. So that was kind of my gateway into gaming. And over the years, I stuck with gaming. Probably had a lapse in the mid 90s when I was in college, and then when I first got married. But then, as we'll get to in a minute, I had a very fortuitous experience where I was hired by Avalon Hill in September of 1997. And,
how did that come about? How did you get hired?
So I'm really going to date myself here. Again, remember, it was 1997. I happened to look in the newspaper because the job I was at the time, I'd been there for a while, and I was looking for something different. My degree in college was mass comm with journalism, but a history minor. But I also did a lot of design work while I was working at a small newspaper in Baltimore at the time, and I saw in there was a help wanted ad in the Baltimore Sun for Avalon Hill, and I thought, well, I know graphic design. I know Avalon Hill. I know games. I thought, what do I have to lose by going in there and just putting in a resume and seeing what happened. And apparently, my qualifications must have really excited Eric and Jack Dott, because they brought me in. Eric Dott took me to a wonderful lunch, and they hired me, I think, within a week of me doing my first interview there. So yeah, it was very old school. It was definitely, I saw an ad in the paper, responded to it, and I got lucky. So
of course, now I'm wondering where you went to lunch.
Oh gosh, it's
I'm like, what could the Dots afford for you?
No, it was a decent lunch. It was the little place on the corner of Hartford and Northern Parkway.
Okay.
I want to say it's Valentino's, but I don't even know if the same restaurant is still there. But it's a nice restaurant. Yeah,
right down the street from the main building.
Yes,
the main printing building,
right on Hartford Road.
And we're talking about Baltimore for anybody that doesn't know.
Yes, this is correct. This is all Baltimore. Ryan and I grew up in Baltimore. We grew up in Northeast Baltimore. We went to the same Catholic school together, as he already alluded to. And Avalon Hill was literally within walking distance of our houses. Not that you would have known it, because if anyone knows anything about Avalon Hill, from the street, you really would not know that you were walking past any kind of company, because their front office, the front building that stood in front of the on the street, and the press buildings were in the back. It was a former Exxon gas station, because I remember as a child in the late 70s sitting in my dad's car waiting in a gas line to get into that Exxon for us to get gas. So apparently at some point during the 1980s, I guess, or but in the intervening 20 years, Avalon Hill bought out that whole garage and turned it into basically their R&D department. And that's where I worked. I worked in that building. Like I said, I started in September of 1997. I was there up through the sale of Avalon Hill, which happened right after Avalon Con in August of 98. I think I got that date right. And I stayed on there a couple more months. I worked for the Girls Life magazine, and then I got another job after that. But so, yeah, I always joke that, like, I was one of the I was on a lifeboat that got picked up by the Titanic. You know, I got to enjoy like a couple nights of luxury, and then
Well,
I was on my own again. So yeah.
what games were you involved with, and what did you do with them? I'd be very curious.
So I was very, very fortunate to work with an extremely talented designer and a very fine gentleman named Ben Knight. He at the time was working on the card game Atlantic Storm.
Oh,
And that was really the first game that I got assigned to do artwork uh, and layout. Um, and I did do play testing. I worked with Ben to develop the images and the layout for the cards, and I worked with the artists, and again, just a really great experience. That game, I think, is probably of all the games I've done, Brave Little Belgium and my Ryan games aside, is probably I feel like it's the best work I did because it just was a lot of fun, and it was a really fun game. In fact, I have the original copy because we all got a copy when the game actually finally was printed. And I brought it home and I started playing it with my wife. And mind you, this was back before we had children. We had just got married. So we got together with our friends quite a bit, and we started playing with our friends, and we were like, wow, this is a really cool game. So we actually wore that copy out.
wow.
And it's one of those cherished things. Now, I'll throw in a little bone here to Ryan. He is a connoisseur of finding game collections. And he actually found a almost pristine copy of the original Atlantic Storm, which he graciously gave to me. So I have my heirloom copy, and I have my vault copy. So, but that was the first game I worked on. After that, I did some work on. I did a lot of advertorial work. Advertisements for the General. We did flyers. We did mail order stuff. Um, I also worked on the game. It it was it was when it was released by Avalon Hill. It was called Monsters Ravage America. I believe when Hasbro redid it, it was renamed Monsters. They took Ravage out and renamed it Monsters Attack America or something. But I worked on the original version of that game. And again did the graphic design, layout, and stuff like that. And again, that was working with Ben Knight again, so that was a lot of fun. One of the other games I got to work on that was absolutely fascinating, and really, I had always liked the Civil War, but this game really helped get me more interested in that particular conflict. Is I worked on the last Avalon Hill version of the and I know I'm going to say the wrong one because there's two series that are very similar. I believe it's the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. It's the one that Multi-Man picked up and is currently redoing. The Stonewall Jackson's Way, or Here Come the Rebels. The game that I worked on was On to Richmond, which was the final one that Avalon Hill did. And that was a wonderful experience because, again, I did lay out I got to do, which at the time was fascinating. I got to do all of the labeling for, I believe it was Charlie Kibler did the map. I got to do all the labeling for that to put all the place names in. And most people would think, oh, that was tedious work. Because when we're talking two full size, maps, and I had to put in, every single detail. But it was just amazing the amount of work into it. And that experience led me to work with another very fine gentleman who is, again, a great designer and a great person. That was Mr. Joe Balkowski, who a lot of folks know he has done a lot of design work with with that series, and also is known for doing the historical work on the 29th Division, which is the Mid Atlantic Division. So that was a lot of fun too. At the time of Avalon Hill's sale, I had done not a whole lot of work. I had done just some like very basic touch-up work on the two of the last games that Avalon Hill did, which was the first version of Mark Herman's For the People and the first version of oh my gosh, is it Randy Heller? I know I'm totally botching that name. No, please forgive me. It's the Bitterwoods. Yeah,
Randy Heller.
yeah. Okay, good. My mind.
I
I
just
was able
played a
to.
game with him at Compass Expo last
Yeah,
week.
again, yeah, both super nice folks. You
Yeah.
know, they were super awesome to work with. But it was really more touch up work with those two. Now, sadly, and I say sadly because I wish I could have continued working on both of these games, but I feel like they both ended up in far better hands and probably got far better treatment from the people that ended up doing them. Is at the time that Avalon Hill got sold, I was actually working on prototype maps for two area games, area movement card driven games, one of which was Don Greenwood's Napoleonic Wars, and the other was Ted Racier's uh, Paths of Glory. We were just starting to do work on those when Avalon Hill was sold. So I got to see them in their infancy, you know, and it would have been an honor to have worked on both of those games. But like I said, I think they got passed on to, you know, GMT did a fantastic job with them. So, you know, I was happy to see that they did get published, but it would have been fun to work on them, you know. But it was a great time, you know. I mean, it was. I joke it was right before we had our daughter. In fact, my wife became pregnant while we were there. So I joke obviously it was not a high paying job, but it was one of those things that you look back and you're like, that was probably one of the most fun experiences I've ever had as far as working, you know, as a job. You know, it was just great. You know, it was great people. You know, like I said, I got to work with some really fantastic people, both, you know, in the design and, you know, I learned printing, which has served me well in, you know, my future, my future career choices. So it was a great experience. You know, I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it was a lot of fun.
So I guess the big question then, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've told me this before, that you're basically like the last person employed and almost, if not the last person left go. But I'm curious as regards, well, is that true? But also, how did you find out they were closing and what was going to happen with you?
So it was, I remember I went to Avalon Con because they didn't really so much give us the day off, but I think it was a Friday because I think the con ran through the weekend. They said, you know, everybody can just go up to Hunt Valley, and which is where they held it at that time. You know, and just hang out, and which that in itself was a wonderful experience because while I was there, I got to meet, you know, again, we talk about being starstruck. I got to meet like Richard Berg. I got to meet Mark Herman. You know, it was like, you know, going to a Hollywood, like going to the Academy Awards and meeting all your, you know, all your favorite stars. So that was a really cool experience. So that was, I want to say that was on a Friday, and I think it was either the Monday or Tuesday afterward. And again, mind you, this is all in the era before we had smartphones and the internet was really widely used. So there was no way that I would have known this walking into the building. I walked in and nobody was there. I think I clocked in. It was like 9 o'clock or something. I walked in and there was no one there. And I thought, what's going on? And the person who at that time was running the art department, another great lady, Jean Bear, she came up to me and she said, Avalon Hill was sold. All of the staff was laid off this morning, but in what I thought was a very gracious act on his part, Eric Dott kept me because he knew that my wife was pregnant at the time and said he didn't want me to lose my job. So he actually offered me a job to stay with, to work on Girls Life, the magazine that they produced at the time. So
dream job, right?
What's that?
That was your dream job, right?
Well, you know, believe it or not, the hysterical part about that is that actually was the kind of work that I should have been doing because that was totally in my field. It was editing, layout, copy editing, stuff like that. So it was kind of like, it was like, all right, back to reality, son. You know, your days of being a moonlighting game designing, you know, work are over, time to come back to reality. And it was fine.
Right.
I totally,
I
but
think people forget that it wasn't just Avalon Hill. It was the box company, it was
oh
the game
yeah,
company, it was
they
Girls Life.
they had a full blown printing company.
Mhm.
They still, and that was the good thing for my future career is that I learned a lot of printing stuff from the folks over on the press. Again, a lot of super nice people over there that taught me, things about registration and, color saturation and ink dot gain and the difference between what you see on the screen and what you see on the printing press. So it was an education. It wasn't just, it wasn't all fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot of learning. But yeah, I guess in a way you could kind of say that, I was one of the last people. I don't know if I was the last, but certainly out of the people that were there explicitly for Avalon Hill, I was probably one of the last. So,
And that building, by the way, is not there anymore. They finally did demolish it, and there is an apartment building now in its place.
You had actually been the one to go back and look at that. I honestly, since I moved out of Baltimore in 2001, I have not really been back that way. So it's a shame that it's gone, but obviously it made no sense to keep it because it was a purpose designed building. So, obviously that's not surprising, but yeah, it was a fun time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, it was a great part of my career. And it definitely kicked me back into doing games, getting into games. I mean, there was no way that I could, not come away from that experience and have my love of gaming not rekindled. So it was great. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
What have you been doing the past 8 or 10 years in gaming?
Well, and again, I have to thank Mr. Heilman for this. And I'll keep this as brief as possible. Ryan and I had lost touch for a few years, and then through the graces of Facebook, we reconnected back in like 07 or 08. So one time he and I decided to go up to we had been going to the WBC, but we went to the first WBC that they had in Seven Springs. And without getting into the long story, we did an all-night drive and showed up at Seven Springs at 7 or 8 in the morning. So we hadn't slept. And Ryan and I just kind of wandered in a daze into the open gaming room. And Ryan and I just decided to play some of the most basic, simple stuff because I think at that point that's all our brains could handle. And Ryan himself had been gaming, but had kind of gotten out of hardcore wargaming, hex and counter wargaming. So we played a game of Africa Core, which I think amused a lot of people there. But for he and I, it was kind of like, hey, this is the kind of stuff we used to do, and it was a great experience. I think we played a couple other simple games like the old SBI Decision remake of Leningrad.
Yeah, so, I told a little bit of this story on the past episode.
Yes,
about how we played Leningrad and how that did inspire some of the Garde Civique in Brave Little Belgium. Well, I went through a lot of the details about how Brave Little Belgium came about.
Brave Little Belgium, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I have to give Ryan the thanks for this. Brave Little Belgium came from an idea that I had that came into my mind back in 1993. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were in college, and we had friends who were doing an overseas study in Leuven, Belgium. And at the time, she was not my wife; she was my girlfriend. But the two of us went over to Belgium for 2 weeks and stayed with them. And we basically toured Belgium, Luxembourg, Holland, Germany, and France. We just kind of hopped on the Euro and, Eurail and just went places. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I really was struck by in Belgium was, obviously Europe is full of monuments. You can't go anywhere really far without running into something historical. But what really surprised me that I don't know that I was necessarily prepared for were all of the monuments in Belgium dedicated to the First World War. Mm-hmm. And of course, being a World War I, being very interested in that subject, it really fascinated me to see the attention that the Belgians paid to that war. Because obviously World War II kind of overshadowed it, but the Belgians seem to really have kept World War One in their national consciousness. So I remember the whole time I was there thinking to myself, which shows that even though I was out of gaming at the time, I still had gaming on the brain. I was thinking to myself, it would be a really cool game to do a simulation of the Germans invading Belgium itself. There are a lot of World War One Western Front games that start, that deal with the start of the war, but usually they're at such a level, operational or strategical, that Belgium is kind of just like, I don't want to say an afterthought, but they definitely, didn't really give it much attention. It's like, yeah, the Belgians put up some resistance. There was the siege at Liège and stuff like that. But, so I thought it would be really cool seeing how the Belgian people, really did put their heart and soul into the resistance, to do a game on this and focus exclusively on just the 3 or 4 weeks that the Germans had to get their way through Belgium. And at that time I was thinking something, like a traditional hex and counter game, or, something like that. And that was in 1993. And honestly, I won't say I didn't think about it again, but I really never did anything with that idea ever, for years. And then it was during this trip to the WBC, the sleep deprived trip, that I made an offhand comment to Ryan about the idea of doing something like that. I think we were just talking about game design in general. Mm-hmm. So, and I brought it up and never gave it another thought. And I think it was a few weeks later, a month later, it wasn't very long after that. Mm-hmm. Ryan comes to me and he says, remember that game idea you had? He's like, well, I've done a map and I've done some counters. He's like, would you like to see what I've done with it? And I was like, oh, okay. And
it was really bad, by the way.
Well, the point is that Ryan basically took my idea and fleshed it out. Now, unfortunately, I did kind of sit on it for a while, so we probably would have had it out earlier if I'd been more proactive with it. But basically, he and I worked together on the concept, and Ryan fleshed out a lot of the details, and we came up with the concept of Brave Little Belgium, pitched it. Hollandspiel graciously published it, did a magnificent job on it, and that's how that came about. So that was a game that took about 25 years to reach, give or take, to reach gamers' tables. But again, I have to thank Ryan for doing that. It was really his.
Appreciate that.
It was his. Well, it was your motivation that got me motivated to actually sit down and say, well, how can we make this work? So it was a lot of fun.
And just to add a little bit of a tease, but later on in the show, we will have some news about Brave Little Belgium. So, yes, indeed. And if you probably have already heard that Hollandspiel is no longer going to be printing it, so they're giving us back the rights, and we'll have some news later on the show to tell you what we're going to be doing with that. Yeah. So I think that's kind of exciting. And then following Brave Little Belgium, of course, was White Eagle Defiant. I'll ignore Lucky Little Luxembourg for right now, but White Eagle Defiant, Ginorma Pod. Those were the two games also kind of that had that David versus Goliath feel to them. Was there any other games that you were thinking about in that series, or any games that you would like to still make in that series?
Well, it's funny because you had told me we were doing this interview. I have, and I guess this is kind of, I don't know if this will be news necessarily, but I have been thinking about a design that I've been ruminating on and off, for a while now. And I'll throw another credit out here. We recently were at Historicon Fall In, and I got to spend some time with another fine gentleman, Mr. Herman Lutman, who, like me, is very into World War One. And it got me thinking, one of the things Ryan and I had discussed as far as like a possible follow-up was a Brave Little Belgium-like game, but set either maybe in World War I Romania or World War I Serbia. And we did some preliminary stuff, but we really never went very far with that.
Yeah, I made a brief little map, I think, for the Romania one.
You
started
did.
investigating some things about mountain passes and how to deal with those, but
Yeah,
didn't get very far.
What I've kind of been kind of playing around with in my head is, rather than just focusing on one or the other of those conflicts, was to possibly design, this would be a little bit step up in terms of scale from what we previously have done with the Brave Little Belgium, or I guess you'd say David and Goliath series, since for lack of a better name, would be to do an examination of the Balkans as a whole throughout all of World War One.
Okay.
Very, very, again, really stressing playability. This will not be the end all be all, it wouldn't be anything, where it would be the definitive word on that theater in World War One. But I feel like it's a neglected theater, but it's very important because a lot of interesting stuff happened there. So I think there actually is the possibility of being able to make a game out of that where you can actually play the whole theater, and hopefully in a reasonable amount of time. I guess you would kind of say this would be, if White Eagle Defiant was Brave Little Belgium's bigger brother, then this game would kind of be like their uncle, or their
great granddaddy of all the
great
games.
grandfather. Yeah, well, it would be a little bit bigger in scale because obviously the space difference would be different. It would focus more on an operational level than just more of a smaller operational, and it would also, the time, it would encompass as much of the war as possible.
Yeah,
but it's just something that's been floating around in my head, just a way to make that to make that happen. But that's kind of the game that I've had rattling around in my head for a while. So
the system is a good one, and that could be very cool.
A lot of people
I think that might be a quick sign for us, Wes. What do you think?
Well,
I know.
it's
we keep thinking up new games here just because of the show.
I honestly, it is in the, it's like, it's in the very infancy stages, but it has been something I've been thinking about, because people have asked at conventions and stuff when Ryan and I were going to do another game. And I said, well, we just have both had, a lot of life commitments that we really haven't had the time to sit down and design a game. But it doesn't mean that I don't want to do it. And it certainly doesn't mean that we weren't interested in it. It just, we didn't have the time for it. So I would love to do another game like that. So whether this particular topic would work, I don't know. We would have to put it through its paces and see if we could come up with something that we felt like would be a good game. But it's definitely something on the radar. So that's a possibility.
Dave, I'm real impressed, man, with all that you have done and all the different facets. I know you also, it hadn't been mentioned, you do a lot of proofing for different companies. You've done a lot with Blue Panther.
Yes.
All kinds of things. So I really admire your breadth of experiences. And
thank you. It's my way of trying to marry the skills that I have with something that I enjoy. And, doing editing and proofing and stuff like that really comes very naturally to me. So it's something that I've been very fortunate to work with Steve Jones from Blue Panther. Just a wonderful company that really, has helped a lot of small publishers get their games in print.
Yep.
And in doing so, I've been able to get the opportunity to do a lot of the editing and proofing. So I'm kind of finally doing what I should have been doing in the beginning. But it's fun.
Yeah, Dave, you're in baseball terminology, you're the closer.
I love it. To me,
ninth inning, and
there is
nothing that fastball.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly how I see it, because there's nothing more exciting than being given a game that's almost done and saying, now look this thing over and make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. And because that's basically what I do for real life, for my adult job. So it's, to me, it's a challenge and it's fun. So, and I'm looking forward to working with, because I'm kind of a free agent. I just kind of work for everybody. So, I'd be more than happy to help you guys with your games. And
awesome.
I'm happy to help anybody. We
have really good news for you, Dave, by the way.
Oh.
Did you hear the news? Yeah. Well, you're the second interview on Rat Chat.
I know.
So
I'm honored.
you're right.
Again,
So you
yeah.
also become part of the Wharf Rat Pack. You'll get your name and picture on our honorary Wharf Rat Pack web page, and once we get our logo and everything, we will send you a nice little hat with Wharf Rat Games on it.
I wear with great pride. Yes,
I appreciate it. Now, Herman already made claim to Dean Martin. So, do you have a particular person you would want to be from the old school Rat Pack?
I would say that I probably would lean in the direction of being the Joey Bishop, the guy that kind of like, he was there, and I always felt like Joey Bishop got not a bum rap, but he was everybody always remembers Martin, Sinatra, and
Sammy Davis
Jr. Yeah, but it's like, well, there was another guy. Actually, it was two. It was also Peter Lorre and Joey Bishop. But yeah, I guess that's who I would be. I would tend to fall into that.
We're gonna eventually run out of these. We might have to move on to the Brat Pack at some point.
I was gonna say, or exactly. Ocean's 11. Yeah.
Or there we go, the new Rat Pack. Yeah. So Dave, it was great having you on, and we definitely want to have you back again as you're getting into making more and more games. And if this Balkan idea takes off, we want to hear more about it. Definitely. So it's been wonderful. So again, guys, thank you all for being here with Dave Shaw, and I'm Ryan.
I'm Wes.
Before we go, did we hear the announcement, or was the announcement that I'm part of the Rat Pack?
You are part of the Rat Pack. That is my announcement. That is my exciting announcement.
I wanted to make sure that
part of the Wharf Rat Pack.
Well, it is an honor, and
we'll have other announcements later.
No, that's fine. Thank you guys both. You both are great gentlemen. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I just wish you guys the best. I hope you have a long and fruitful career of putting out excellent games, which I'm sure, I have no doubt you will, and I'll be more than happy to help. It'd be an honor.
Appreciate it. Okay, everybody, take care and stay tuned for more on Rat Chat.
Welcome to Cool Classics. I am Ryan again, and Wes is here. Yeah. And we're in front of Canton Games right here in Baltimore to talk about the next giveaway for next month, as well as to draw the winner of this month's game, Conspiracy. So let's first hear from Wes about next month's game. What are we going to give away?
Well, you heard Dave talking about World War I and Guns of August. So next game up for winning, is the Guns of August by Avalon.
Good. Looking forward to that. I'll make sure we have a nice copy to give away of that.
Another cool classic.
And now let's go over to the spinning wheel so we can find out who won this month's game, Conspiracy. We have a special guest today, Alex Zatarain. And Alex is an artist and a graphic designer and a landscape architect and real Renaissance man from what I can tell. So Alex, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's just great to have you. I mean, we find that with many of these shows that they have designers and they have publishers and all that, but they tend to forget to include the artists. So we really wanted to try to include artists on the show, and you are our first artist on the show, and having worked with you on several different games, we're excited to have you here. So why don't we get right into it? Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and kind of just been drawing my whole life just for fun. Got my undergraduate art degree, and then got a master's in landscape architecture. So kind of just been doing landscape design since then, and yeah, got into doing some board game artwork sort of by chance. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but yeah, I've been really enjoying it, and hopefully can kind of pivot, weight that a little more than landscape design, but we'll see what happens.
Are you a big gamer, or is this a strange field for you? Or are you used to?
Oh no, yes, yeah, I really like board games. So I met someone at college who, for their birthday, they would have a big game night. That was like their birthday bash, was play a bunch of board games. So I was like, wow, these are pretty cool. I think we played Pandemic or something. I don't remember. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. So yeah, just been downhill ever since then.
Now, you and I sort of met through Board Game Geek of all places. I seem to remember some point after Land and Freedom came out, someone said, have you seen this artwork that someone's doing, this fan artwork on Board Game Geek? I said, oh, well, I better go check this out. I looked at it and I was just absolutely wild by that. What made you decide to try to do some artwork for Land and Freedom?
I just really liked the game, I guess, and I was playing it a lot with people, but people, I don't know, I just thought, I was like, I want to give, as a hobby, let's give this a shot. Because a lot of times when I play board games, I'll think about the like visual design of how this works, how that works. And so like, wow, I figured on this one, I'll just try my hand at the visual design of it. It wasn't like too many pieces, although actually what kind of was, right? Because there's a lot of unique cards. So, but I figured if I homebrew this, I could like print it out and make my own pieces, and I think it'll look all right, so, I mean, versus a game like it has hexagon, like hex pieces with like plastic miniatures and stuff. So I thought, well, this one I could, I don't know, just wanted to give it a shot. So,
and was that the first one was that the first one you had ever worked on, or game wise?
Board game, yeah.
Oh wow, okay. And it was, I mean, the work we saw for that was phenomenal. I mean, I saw cards that you had done and some of the icons that you had created and all that, and it was really phenomenal. And it led me to contact you about just to see if you wanted to be involved in creating artwork for board games, which you were, which is why we're here today, which is wonderful. So I'm assuming, and I don't think this is spoiling things too much, that your artwork on Land of Freedom might eventually make an appearance someplace or another.
I think so. That's what I've heard, but I think it's still in the works.
Still in the works. Okay. I just wanted to see because I knew you were kind of homebrewing it, but it was one of those situations where it was so good that it may actually eventually make an appearance in an actual published version, which is very cool. I mean, that doesn't happen a whole lot. The only other one I can think of offhand was Dune, where the artist for Dune had done all that fan artwork for Dune, and then when they wanted to go reprint the game, they said, "Oh, hey, we already have this fantastic artwork." And that's what they ended up using.
I guess that's a good point. That's actually when I started thinking about homebrewing stuff, because back when Dune was sort of like between publishers, licensing, whatever, I was like, I'm gonna make a version of this, and I should be like, well, what if I just, instead of just printing those print and play files, like make my own? So I thought about that for years and just never did it. So then I guess maybe going back to the other story, Land of Freedom seemed easier to do than Dune, so that's why I did it. But also,
maybe it isn't as easy, but
they're Dune out already, so it's already kind of coming.
Yes,
I think that's like in the music business, somebody singing on the corner and getting discovered. I mean, that's the modern day version of that. It's really a cool story.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was really happy you reached out, Ryan. I was actually quite shocked. And I almost didn't post them. I was just going to make it for myself. And my wife was like, you should put these on the internet. And I'm not a very, online person. So
that
put it out there, but I'm glad I did.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that led, if I'm going to make sure I get the chronology right, that led to then you working on Tattered Flags Into the Whirlpool. Is that, that was the next one after that, correct?
Right.
Okay. And that has gotten amazing response, particularly the cover of the map. Yeah, we demoed it, and everybody
everybody loves the art.
Yeah, well, that was the dream project too, because like I used to play Battlecry with my dad every once in a while. So this is a more complicated version, but a very similar kind of the little soldiers moving around and stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, are you solely digital, or do you do some analog type artwork as well?
I mean, I guess that it's mostly digital now. I mean, I have like a tablet that you draw on, so it's sort of like hand-drawn digital, kind of vibe. But yeah, basically everything is quote unquote hand-drawn, and then you can tweak it. It's just so much easier to make edits digitally. Although I think in future I'd like to, get a nice scanner or something so I can work analog a little more. Because you do,
right, they'll do it in like a base copy or something, then scan it and then bring that in and then work with it on the digital. So I wasn't sure if they were doing that or not. So I mean, like I said, I mean the work like for the map, the counters, and the cover were absolutely phenomenal, and people just constantly comment about particularly the cover and the map, about how phenomenal they are. They talk a lot about the map almost has like a watercolor feel to it. That they talk a lot about. And then the point of view of that cover, and then the figures and how it really expresses what the game is about receives a lot of feedback.
Yeah, people. Awesome. I mean, it's a like a miniatures game, but with cardboard, or it gives you that feel, and that I think it's very innovative with those little star points that they move and face on and all that, and it's very cool. It's not like you see a beautiful map and it's sort of messed up by this hexagon grid just placed over it in so many ways. Artistically it is, but it's a novel solution too. How did that come about? Was that Herman's or your idea, or?
Yeah, I think the star was Herman's idea, right? Or you and Herman's, right?
Herman came up with the star idea, and then I sort of drew it out for him, and then he gave me the original map, and then I overlaid the star concept, and then put in the digital version of the map for TTS play and all that sort of stuff. And then we gave, I should show this map. In fact, I will show it. The map that we originally did, we gave to Alex to then take, and I mean, what he came up with was phenomenal. And I mean, the directions to him were, we wanted something to honor the original map, because the original map was a Rick Barber map. But we didn't want a direct copy of a Rick Barber map. So we wanted something that was definitely in honor of that. But again, something new and original. I think you really capture that quite phenomenally. So
that's great to hear. Yeah, I know Rick Barber has that's left some big shoes to fill. So I'm happy people like the map.
They do. They very much do. They keep asking, when's the next one? That's the next one. Next the next one. And we are working on the Antietam cornfield version, so we might be contacting you for a map for that. And then I know that Herman's looking at maybe doing one on Revolutionary War, Guilford Courthouse. So we'll be looking at some of those as well. And the other game that I know that you've been involved with is a game very near and dear to Wes and my heart, which is The Pursuit of John Wilkes Booth. And you've been doing a lot of work on that, and you've done cover for that, icons for that, cards for that, really, a map for that, everything under the sun. In fact, you weren't supposed to do everything. I was going to do some cards for it, and I looked at the cards that I did for him, and I went, no, we can't include these after we're looking at this phenomenal map and phenomenal cover and phenomenal icons that Alex did. We need to come up and have him do the cards, and the cards that you've done have been really phenomenal and fantastic on that as well. So
we have a big shout out to Steve Jones too for he's seeing what's going on, and the project's delayed basically from what we originally wanted. We wanted it out by 1st of November, but because he wants to upgrade so much of the art, and Alex has been doing that, it's really coming out to be something special.
And Alex, the cover for that is somewhat unique. I know I gave you a little bit of direction on that, but you really took that and made that your own. I mean, how did you come up with the design for the cover of that?
Yeah, I know my initial sketches were a lot different, right? Too.
Yeah, they were. They really changed.
I'm trying to think of my thought process. Well, the game centers around Booth, John Wilkes Booth. So it's kind of like, well, we got to put him, make him front and center, right? And dramatic as possible, right? I mean, he's a stage actor, and I don't know, he's pretty flamboyant in general. I mean,
actor.
So tried to kind of. But you don't want to. He's kind of the villain of the game, so you don't want him to look too heroic. So that was kind of the things, the difficulty I was having in getting that ready. But yeah, so I guess I don't know. Since everything's surrounding Booth, it was kind of the composition is to have Booth in the middle and then all these cavalry sort of closing in on him, because that's kind of, I thought that just trying to reflect what the gameplay is kind of like anyway, right? You're zeroing down your leads, and you're zeroing down where he is, and you're getting closer and closer. So, and then you just up the drama a little bit. And the burning building is dramatic and it historically accurate. I mean, obviously he was in there, he didn't escape, but so we're kind of playing with history a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's super interesting, but that's kind of what I was thinking. And then,
Now you also seem to be somewhat of a historian, because you both in the Tattered Flags and then also in Booth, you really added your own historical take to it. If I recall, with Tattered Flags, for example, you were the one who decided to put in all the different patches for the Union onto the counters, right? And then with Booth, I mean, you've been actually doing a lot of research to try to pull out additional images, as well as doing some research and pulling in additional information that's going to include in
flavor text.
And that, to be honest with you, that's not really common. I mean, a lot of times artists are just given the stuff and then they do it. But I mean, is that an interest of yours? I mean, is history something you studied, or?
I think historical board games would be what I'd play all the time if I could find people that would play them with me, so, which I do on occasion, but I think, not the people I play games with aren't quite as big history buffs as me. So working on games like this is a dream, because I can, read about the hunt for John Wilkes Booth or read about Gettysburg, Wheatfield stuff, and have that inform the game. And I mean, part of it is like, well, we need a little symbol for each of these different brigades, and well, they already have the core symbol, so why reinvent the wheel, and just we'll use those, and I mean, modify them to fit and look a little more modern, context. But so that's a lot of fun. Like, the research is a big part for me. Like, even if I was like, I've speaking of Dune, I did some drawings for that. Like, I always like to do a lot of legwork up front, even if it's a fantasy setting or sci-fi. You kind of be like, okay, well, like, I was just using Dune as an example, right? I guess it's like this feudal, medieval, futuristic society. So, okay, let's look at sort of like medieval heraldry and costumes and try to, work that in. With a historical game, it's much more straightforward, right? Because it's like historical events and facts and interpretations. It's a little more obvious. But yeah, I don't know. I like to do a lot of research. So yeah, adding flavor text, I was like, well, I got extra room from what they wrote. I'll just add my own thing. Hopefully it doesn't make them mad. I don't know.
That was cool.
See what they say. But, I just, get too excited about it because,
do you have a favorite periods of history that you like to do art for and research for?
The American Civil War I was really into when I was a kid. So that's something so that would probably be the one. Like doing it, if I do the Revolutionary War game, that'd be fun, because I actually don't know much about it. So that'll be a lot more, learning to do things for that. But yeah, probably that. Spanish Civil War kind of is very interesting to me recently. So I guess Spanish Civil War, World War II, but yeah.
Okay.
Very, very cool. Now, the other thing that you've been involved with is some work for us, Wharf Rat Games, and the design of our logo. And we're going to share the logo on the show, the final logo, so people get to see it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for the logo?
Sure. I was trying to think. Well, you guys had a pretty solid concept to begin with. That was very cool. Sort of a
I mean, we did get some direction, but I think you really, you took it, and made it your own, which is, wonderful. But yeah, I think we had told you we wanted a rat, obviously, with some personality, and I think we wanted it to be sort of in a harbor, kind of mimicking the Baltimore harbor. And I think we originally had them floating on a chest or something like that in the harbor. I think that's all we had. Maybe in front of a sun or a moon or something to that effect. But you took it and did some new things with it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's basically that concept has stuck through, I think, because you guys had it. We changed it to a dice instead of a crate, which I think was that Wes's idea or yours, Ryan? I don't know. It wasn't mine. I know that.
It wasn't mine.
Was
that yours, Wes?
Yeah, I think I said that.
Okay. Yeah, I wish I had thought of that. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. But yeah, basically just trying to think of a this is the first logo I've done. I mean, done icons for games, right? And so when you're doing icons for games, what I try to do is make the shape very distinct, right? So you can sort of, at a glance, you don't need to look closely at it. And I imagine a logo on a game box, at least in that context, it's you don't want it to overwhelm the board game art, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you want it to be recognizable enough that if someone says, "Oh, this game looks interesting," oh, it's by Wharf Rat, it's got to be good, or whatever. But so yeah, it's just kind of looking at like famous logos, like the Twitter logo is a bird. I was like, oh, there's an animal. That's simple, or like I would say, if I'm looking at inspiration, it'd be like the DreamWorks logo, kind of mixed with the Twitter logo, but just trying to make it simple, clean, kind of elegant, so it'll look nice on busy artwork potentially. And then, if you ever need a poster or something that will,
I like that idea.
More of a mascot or something, you know what I mean? But otherwise, I don't know. I don't know how much to talk about the logo. I was just I have it up on the screen here, so on my other screen, so I'm looking at it now.
Well, we'll share it either during this segment or a little later during a new segment. But we just wanted to give you a lot of credit for it because that was really your creation and did a fantastic job on it, and really have done a fantastic job with everything. And we wanted to get your name out there because part of what we do here at Wharf Rat is not just furthering our company, but really trying to further the board game industry in general, but also to forward the careers of young people like yourself that are just getting into this field. And you are certainly, in my mind, a rising star. And in some ways, I don't want to run this segment because I don't want to lose you for other things. But at the same time, I want you to be successful. And so I'm hoping that people look at this and see some of your art and go, yeah, we need to hire him for some things going forward. So hire him. Definitely. Get him working on your games. He sounds like he has some interest in fantasy, sci-fi, all sorts of other things. It should be fantastic. I want to make a fantasy game just to have you do it.
Exactly. Well,
So-
it just sum all that up. It's been like just such a good experience working with you on Basecamp with the messages going back and forth. You're asking the right questions of us, and we're talking about things, and you're not going way out on a limb or something without talking to us first. And you obviously have the passion for it, and that's been really good. It's not the typical story. I talked at the last convention I went to with a whole lot of designers about their experiences with artists. And you can have the extreme case where I worked with an artist that was from Europe and obviously did no research on the exact time period and stuff like that. We had cactus growing in northern Georgia and it looked like Utah at first. It got better and it it's beautiful art now. But, that kind of story, and where they would not, evidently, they say in a lot of Euro games, at least what I'm hearing, artists won't talk with the designer, only with the company.
Yeah.
And
being able to talk with you guys is great. I recommend everyone let the artists talk with the designer if they want to, right?
Because we never have to unravel something to put it back together again.
Right.
And so, it's a breath of fresh air to work with you.
Yes, definitely. All of that. Definitely. Oh, thank you so much, Alex. So it was great having you here. And as always, any guest on Rat Chat becomes an honorary member of the Wharf Rat Pack, and you will be on. You're actually the third member of this at this point. So you will be on our honorary Wharf Rat Pack page, and we'll also definitely get you once we get the logo done. And with it, and we have it, we're going to get you a Wharf Rat Games hat as well. And I always ask, because this is the question, we have already had people taken from the original Rat Pack. Herman Lutman says he is Dean Martin, and Dave Shaw says he's Joey Bishop. Do you have a preference of either what we have left, Peter Lorre, Frank Sinatra, or Sammy Davis Jr. to be from the original Rat Pack?
Oh, man. No one's just Frank Sinatra yet?
No one's taking Frank.
Sammy Davis. I might do that one instead, actually.
Okay, we'll give you Sammy Davis. We're running out. I guess something's maybe you, Wes, or Frank, and I'm Peter. So anyway, it was great having you on here, and we'll definitely have you back on again as you're working on more stuff. We want to hear more about the artwork and what you're doing. Okay, so take care and have a great day. I'm Ryan.
I'm Wes.
And you are?
I'm Alex. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
And we are here down in Baltimore on this rainy, snowy, loud day. And you can see we got the Washington Monument behind us and the Walters Art Museum as well. And around the corner here, let's turn around, Wes. Let's turn around. We have this glorious 7-Eleven over here. Now, why weren't we at a 7-Eleven? Well, this is one of the Baltimore's First. And that's a new segment we have here on Rat Chat, Baltimore's First. And what are we going to find at this 7-Eleven? Well, let's go check. Slurpees. Let's go across the street and find out.
All right.
Well, here we are at the entrance of the 7-Eleven at 529 North Charles Street. This is at the corner Center and Charles Street, and this is one of the Baltimore's First. What happened here? Well, we have to go back all the way to 1890, April 25th, 1890, when a man named Charles Kennard and Elijah Bond's sister-in-law named Helen Peters. Now, Helen Peters was a medium, and they all met in Elijah Bond's room here. At the time, it wasn't a 7-Eleven, it was a little hotel. And they were playing with what was known as a talking board at the time. And Charles Kennard wanted to make a game out of it? I don't know what you call it. I don't know if it's considered a game or not, but it's something to connect to the beyond. And this was really at that period of time after the spiritualist movement when people were trying to connect with the dead. And so they met here, right here. And hey, you want to find out what to call the game of the new board? Why don't you just ask it? And that's what they did. They asked the board what it should be called. And it came back, Ouija. O-U-I-J-A. I think we kind of call it Ouija board nowadays. And they even asked, what does it mean? And the board came back and said, good luck. Now, do you believe that?
I don't know about that.
You think the board really told
Mine, when I had one as a kid, it never spelled anything unless we made it do it. But let's see. I'm being a skeptic, but I'm also a little nervous about going in here. And I think I do need a Slurpee.
Okay, do you want to go in and see what we can find out?
All right, let's do it.
You go
All right.
first. I'm too
All right,
scared.
I'm going.
You go.
All right.
I don't see anything. Nothing scary here. I think I'm okay. Let's check back here though. Maybe there's something I'm missing. It just looks like a regular 7-Eleven. Wait a second. I think I might see something. Hold on. Wes, this is kind of scary.
Oh no, you found something scary at 7-Eleven.
You look at this thing, 53 grams of sugar, 106% of your daily sugar content in one drink.
Oh my God. That could get you through a monster game, right?
Maybe.
Get to keep you hyped through a monster game?
Maybe.
All right.
I haven't seen anything here, man. This looks like a 7-Eleven. Have you seen anything yet?
Well, I don't know. Look over here. There's some plaque.
There's a plaque over here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go check that out. Where is it?
Right here.
Oh, there it is. What's it
Check
say?
this out. It says the Ouija was named here.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
So this is where, this used to be a hotel, as you mentioned, and they actually named it right here because the Ouija board named itself and then said it was good luck.
So I also hear, and I could be wrong on this, but I also hear that if we consider this a board game, and I don't know whether it is or not, but if we consider this a board game, then this has got to be one of the first mass market board games in the U.S. and one of the first patented board games in the U.S. I know that there were others a little later, but they would have been in the later 1890s, and we're talking 1890 here. So that's got to be a Baltimore First.
That's gotta be. It's gotta be.
So you still got your Slurpee?
Yep.
How is it?
Enjoying it.
Is this your first one ever?
Maybe second in my lifetime.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So what was
Had to
more
find out what it's
rewarding,
all
the
about.
Slurpee or the Ouija plaque?
This is much more interesting and still a little bit scary to me.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, come back next week and we can find out more about Baltimore's First. So next month.
Yep.
Next month. I gotta remember, we're only doing this once a month.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Well, there we go. Another episode is complete. But we have one more thing to go over with you, and that's our news and notes for today. Here we are in front of the Baltimore War Memorial. This was built right after World War I to honor all those Baltimoreans who died in the war, and we thought this would be a perfect place to make a special announcement. Wes, it's all up to you.
All right, yep, we have the name for Herman Lettman's new game, our first Wharf Rats game we're going to produce, and it's called A Forlorn Hope. It's a trench raiding game, a push your luck system that Herman is known for, but with a lot of extra specials, and we thought this would be an appropriate place to announce this.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. And again, we're going to see you next month, but stay tuned. There's something very exciting right at the end of this. So say goodbye, Wes, and then we'll show it off. Bye, guys. See you later.
Take care.